Last night, I was, rapidly looking through some of these rumors on X, pretty credible people on what's going on with Jerome Powell and the Fed. I was like, "What the heck is?" I was actually popping popcorn and watching this. It was getting so crazy.
So it's just the rumors that he is going to be stepping down.
Well, yeah, I mean. Yeah, Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman, she was saying it was almost imminent that he was about to be fired. Actually fired. There was other rumors saying, well, we're not sure about fired, but he's considering resigning.
Yeah, you know why.
Yeah. I was like, what the heck is going on?
Right. So do you know? Do you know why he's resigning?
No.
Take any guesses?
I mean,
you had popcorn out. I'd love to hear what you've come up with.
Well, there was the CPI stuff coming out, the interest rates going up. We know that the president wants interest rates to come down.
Right.
I'm assuming that is what the deal is, and there's some kind of internal battle going on.
Well, the president can't fire the Fed chief. Okay. So the president is the one that nominates. The Federal Reserve is the biggest crock of bullcrap I've ever seen in my life. It is nothing but the 5 biggest banks. Okay. And you know which ones they are because they're the ones that keep getting bigger and everybody else is falling to the wayside. So it is there. The Federal Reserve is the arm of those 5 banks. Okay. And they suggest who the president can select from. So the president can't say, I don't want any of these guys. I want this guy. Can't do it. He has to take a look at the list that all the banks have put together and say, pick from this list, Mr. President. Did you know that?
It's kind of like, it sounds like exactly how Iran chooses their next president.
It is exactly that way. Except this religion is all about the almighty dollar.
Right.
Okay, so he can't pick on his own, but the president has a right to pick one, every term if it comes up in his term. The president wants this guy out. And I think he's been really, really bad because he's been wrong on almost everything. But show me the Fed, the guy who the Fed was right ever. So he can't fire him, but he wants him out because he wants interest rates dropped. And, the jobs are coming back. Things are coming back, but interest rates keep coming up. And the interest rates, if we keep our interest rates high, we have a harder time borrowing money for our debt, and it just gets more and more expensive for everybody all the way along. So the president wants him to back off interest rates, but the Fed chief believes that could cause more inflation, which I think he's right on that one. And I hate to say he was right about anything because I don't think he's ever right. It makes me question myself when I'm like, well, I think he might have a point on that one. Okay. But the president is like, no, it can handle it. I want them down. I want cheap money again. He refuses. So what has the president done? The president can only fire him with cause. So what do you do when you can only fire somebody with cause and you want them out? You find a cause. And this one's easy. So the Fed has been the one leading the way saying, we can't keep borrowing money. We've got to have some fiscal sanity, right? This is going to kill us. We've got to keep these interest rates high because you are borrowing too much money, and maybe this is the only way to stop you. So we got to keep it high because you've borrowed too much money. And how many times has he testified in front of Congress? We've got to cut. We've got to cut. You can't keep spending like this. Okay. Well, did you know that the Federal Reserve, with our tax dollars, the 5 biggest banks, a.k.a. the Federal Reserve, is redoing their offices to the tune of $2 billion. Now, I don't know what kind of wallpaper they need there, but that seems like a pretty hefty renovation, especially when everybody's looking at cutting things and you're lecturing me about spending money. So they get money from the government. Okay. They're telling us stop spending, stop borrowing. Except, okay, when you've borrowed, I need $2 billion of that to redo our offices in Washington, D.C. Excuse me? Why don't you do that yourself? Okay, I think banks maybe have some money. So they're borrowing that money, and they're $700 million over. So it's $2 billion, $700 million over budget, and they're still not finished. And the problem is they're putting in water features. They have a rooftop garden they're building.
Okay.
I mean, it's insane. So all the president now knows, really? You want to play this game with me? I'm going to sit your ass down in front of Congress and you answer to the American people how you're lecturing us about spending and you're putting in a rooftop garden and a water feature in your office. No. So the president is now threatening, I'll fire you for this. You want to quit? Now would be the time to quit. Otherwise, I'm dragging your butt in front of Congress. You answer to the American people for this, and they will beg me to fire you. So that's what's happening. So I believe.
I looked at that a lot because I was like, there's got to be some leverage that the president has because he can't just get rid of.
No.
But that's some pretty big cause. Yeah. That sounds like a Babylon Bee article. It really does.
It does.
$2 billion.
$2 billion, $700 million over budget.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, and these are the responsible bankers. No. No, I don't think so. It just shows they don't mean what they say. They'll just keep doing it for themselves. You know, if you really believed that America was really on that financial cliff, why would you do that? You would lead the way and say, guys, we are going to be the only responsible ones here. We're going to lead by example. No renovation. You know what? Go to IKEA. You need a new desk? Go to IKEA and get a new desk. Well, we've got to keep up our image. We're not going to have a country. So what do you say we go to IKEA? Our image should be, we are going to lead the way out of this madness. That's what a leader would do.
So Glenn, I still don't think I get this disconnect between Trump and Powell on. So we know Trump wants to lower interest rates. Powell, he's standing back and saying basically he's not going to do it. Is he trying to undermine President Trump on this?
President Trump thinks so. President Trump thinks so. I think so to some degree. I mean, I'm worried about inflation and low. I mean, look, you know what's happening with Japan?
What's happening with Japan?
So what's happening with Japan is Japan has always had this really amazing image of we're solid. We're absolutely solid. This is starting to crack the foundation. 1989. Let me go back to 1989. This was the crown jewel of the global economy. Back in 1989, you probably are not old enough to remember. All of a sudden, Japan owned everything in America. Okay, we were just becoming Japanese, and everything was being purchased by Japan. Kind of like it feels a little bit like China now. Okay,
they even own Nakatomi Plaza, Glenn, that Bruce Willis had to save.
That's right. That's right.
They owned everything in every 80s movie.
Oh, yeah. They owned absolutely everything. Okay. And things were so insane in Japan. The grounds of the Imperial Palace in Tokyo, on paper, was worth more than the entire value of the state of California.
Wow.
Okay. So their land, everything just shot up. And so they were flush with all this cash. Okay. And people believed that Japan had suddenly, cracked the formula for, eternal prosperity. That's the problem. And then it all started to fall apart. And the asset prices that they had mortgaged against. Okay. They had borrowed the Imperial Palace is worth more than California. That doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't mortgage it like that. At least long term, you might go like, I'm going to do this real quick and pay it off. You would never, ever mortgage because that's insane. Well, nobody ever wants. It seems in governments, nobody ever wants to believe that this is just a fluke. Okay, so the asset prices collapsed, the stock markets plunged, and for 3 decades, they have gone into this very polite political coma. Okay, economic coma. And so the central bank did something radical. They were the first ones to set your interest rate at 0. They lowered the interest rate. They made money so cheap it was nearly free. 0% interest. Sometimes they would pay you to take out money. So they had negative interest rates. Can you imagine that? Now, you're not fixing the problem. You're just now printing wallpaper to cover over the mold. All right. So they've done this for decades. Now their debt is, I think, 260 or 280% of their GDP. I think, what is ours? 100? 80%? Something crazy? 120. You never come back. The death threshold is usually about 120, 140. They're 260% of their entire economy is debt. That is not a crack. That's a fault line. So this week, or was it last week, things started to creak and groan in Japan. And the government bonds, which are like our treasuries, is this getting too complex? Are you following this still?
Yeah.
Okay. So their government bonds, they were the safest investments on earth. One of them. Okay. It's us, Japan, Germany. They started to fall hard. And when bond prices fall, interest rates or the yields go up. All right. So they borrowed all this money. 260% of their GDP is borrowed. Okay. So they borrowed all of that money and they had it like at 3% interest, whatever, 2% interest. And they were paying people 2%. Well, all of a sudden, the cracks started to appear, and people were like, I'm not sure this is stable at all. And then the belief of the system started to go away. So people started selling their Japanese bonds. Once they do that, now the yields have to go up. What happens when yields go up? What happens when interest rates go up for a government? You have to pay more interest on your debt. Okay? You add 2 or 3 points. Just imagine you have an adjustable rate. Okay? This is a government having an adjustable rate, except they have 260% of everything they make in debt, and it's all leveraged. And now their adjustable goes up 2, 3, 4 points. You're not able to afford that anymore. Okay? So massive problem, because what it really means is people don't believe in Japan. They know the con game is now over, and investors are saying, I want a whole lot more in return if I'm going to, because I just don't believe you anymore. And it's not just Japan's problem. This is not a neighbor's house on fire. Imagine we're all living under the same roof. This is the neighbor's apartment on fire. We're all under the same roof. We all have the same foundation. And so when this happens to Japan, you should pay attention. So now if Japan, that means there's a stampede out of Japan and people are starting to look and reprice the risk of their money. Now they're like, wait a minute, if the most stable, if you're driving a car and it is the safest car in the world and all of a sudden they just start blowing up on the highway, you're like, I don't think that's the safest car on the highway. And if that is the safest car, what does it mean for the car I'm in? You know what I mean? So now this is going to push U.S. interest rates going up, which makes our mortgage rates go up and our car loans get more expensive. And the national debt, which is already costing us $1.2 trillion a year just in interest. Now, they can't sell their treasuries. People are skittish on treasuries. Maybe they come to the United States, but they're not so far. They're getting out of the Japanese interest or the bonds there. Japan has to pay their bills. What do you do when you have to pay a bill and you don't have any money coming in? You don't have enough money coming in. What do? You sell something, right? You sell your car. You sell something that you have of value. Well, what do they have? What do they hold of value? U.S. treasuries. So now we are trying to sell our bonds for our new debt. They hold our old debt. They're saying, hey, anybody want to buy this debt? Because I got to sell it. Fire sale. What do you give me for it? Okay. Which makes that debt more attractive because they can get a better deal there, which means if we want to have new debt, we have to raise our interest rates, which means we pay more for, interest for our mortgages and everything else. And it floods the market with bonds, crushing the prices, skyrocketing the costs for us, and causing even more trouble in other countries that have U.S. bonds because they start to look and go, nobody's buying these bonds. Well, of course not. You have two countries, the two stablest countries besides Germany. You have the two stablest countries now selling U.S. Treasury bonds. Okay? Really, really bad. Now let me add this on. Germany is now having to pay for their own army. And so they said they're going to borrow money to build the army, and they're going to lower their interest rate so they can borrow more money. All right? And now the German Bund, which is, like our treasury, that's now starting to fall apart. Well, Germany has some assets they can sell. What do you think that asset might be that they want to sell? U.S. treasuries. We have been playing an extraordinarily horrible game. This is why I believe the president wants somebody else in charge of the Fed, because the Fed can say, we're lowering the interest rates. Because he's got to get more money into the system so people can spend money, can start businesses, borrow money, get things moving so we can increase the amount of taxes that we collect. The more people the more people make, the more taxes we collect. So he's like, we've got to grow the economy, and the only way we can grow the economy is to lower the interest rates. But at the same time, interest rates around the world, because of what's happening with the bonds, is going through the roof. We are in a we've never been in this position before.